So I'm going to turn off comments, but I do love you all very much, as you know. And I'm going to bring up, so this, ladies and gentlemen, was the image that you voted for very late. So I apologise, but this was the image that you voted for from the frescoes of Santo Stefano Rotondo in Roma. You guys, you've kind of got a nose for when you might get a good story out of something, I think, because this is actually only part of a fresco. So this is actually a detail from a fresco, and there's plenty more. So you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 martyrs for your money for your time this morning. So that's obviously exactly what you want on a Thursday morning in the run up to Christmas. So this is a lovely lady called Martha. But the fresco isn't named after her. The fresco is named after her husband. It's a bit of a family affair, this one. And frankly, if I had brought up the image of her husband, I'll just show you the whole thing. So here we go. Here is the whole thing. So there's lovely Martha. On the left-hand side there, her husband, Marius, is in the middle, and her sons are to the right. But yes, if I'd have just brought up this image, if I'd have asked you to choose this image in terms of gore, you would have gone, nah, not very gory. You would have rejected this out of hand. And if it's gore that you're looking for, I'm not surprised, because this one, quite frankly, is, I'm going to say, it's almost a sort of a celebration of the silver fox, isn't it? Rather than gory. I mean, this is Saint Marius, and he's kind of displayed for us. I feel like we're almost being asked to objectify him. In fact, it's kind of all right to objectify him, arms up. So that lifts. So when you got arms up, it lifts the bust if you're a woman. It lifts the chest if you're a man. It flattens the stomach. Perfect. Shows off the arm muscles to quite good effect, especially if you haven't got any. But then, and I'm not saying he hasn't. Then he's wearing this quite low-slung loincloth, which takes us down to some rather muscular legs. And the thing is that he's looking down. So he's not looking out at us, and he's looking down. So that almost makes it permissible for us to enjoy his body. Now, I'm not saying that this is completely in that genre of objectification, but I am definitely saying that I feel that the artist Serge has kind of gone there a little bit. So it's an interesting mix, this fresco, between horror. I mean, and frankly, he's not choosing to disport himself for our delectation, is he? I mean, he is actually tied to a frame, let's not forget that. But there is a little bit of a juxtaposition, a little bit of a tension, I think, in this fresco between slight sort of sexual undertone and if you fancy a silver fox, and who wouldn't, and then the horror that's going on either side of Marius. I also just want to say that he is on this wooden frame, and the frame frames him quite literally. So it's almost as though, if I go back to the main image, it's almost as though he is sort of framed within the picture. So it's like a picture within a picture, or a scene within a scene. So he is really being shown off by this apparatus that is causing him distress. I'm sure it can't be very nice to be there. So you might think, okay, so you're noticing that, and then inevitably your eyes might slide off, perhaps to the left of the painting, where you see two youths. And and initially, this is the thing about this. It's quite mean in a way, because initially you think, oh, they look like a pair of lovely young chaps, and then you go in a bit closer. You're sort of invited to go in a little bit closer to get a better look at them, and look what you see. Ah! So these are Marius's sons. So Marius, Silver Fox and Centaur, these are his sons. And they do just look like a lovely pair of young fellows who have been walking down the road, and it sort of looks for all the world, before you kind of look at their torsos, if you just look at their faces, it looks for all the world as though the one who's slightly in the front has turned round to chat to his brother, as they're wandering along. And it's just as though they're having a little conversation between them. The one on the right, as we're looking at it, he's looking down. He sort of looks. He seems to be looking down and somewhat in surprise, but not, or maybe even in thought. I don't know. There's no great reaction at all here, is there? Which again is a juxtaposition, because when you do look down, you can see that there's a fellow who has accosted them. That's how it looks. I mean, when you look closer, you can see it's a little bit different, but it looks as though he sort of accosted them on the path with two whacking great big hooks in his hand, that he just happens to have hooked into their torsos. I mean, that's just not what you want when you're out for a walk, and some guy comes along. I look at him and I'm thinking, he kind of looks as though he's doing a dance or something, this torturer, executioner. He kind of looks as though he's kind of I don't know, got maracas or something, and he's like having a little stretch out, and he's and he's doing his thing, and maybe he's just forgotten that he's got some hooks in his hand. It's all a bit wrong. And again, he sort of has a very insouciant look on his face. He does not, let's put it this way, he does not look like a man who is in the act of committing a very grisly, gruesome murder with a pair of huge hooks. And he does not look as though he's killing two perfectly lovely, innocent young boys who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Of course, that's not the entire story, because if you look more closely, they are actually tied to a tree stump or a pole. I think it must be a tree stump. And if you look closely, I mean, it isn't very nice. You can see the flesh pulling. They've got drips of blood all down their bodies. It's pooled at the bottom of their feet. So that's what I'm saying. You kind of look at this and you go, oh yeah, a couple of nice boys, and then you go a bit closer, and for your efforts of close looking, you're rewarded with horror. Quite honestly, it's really not very nice. So then, on the other side, these are Marius's young sons. On the other side of Marius, St. Marius, we have his wife Martha. So this, as I say, is the one that lured you in the first place. Now she just looks like a lovely, very demure Roman matron. She's dressed in these robes, would have been probably the height of fashion in ancient Rome. The only thing is that she seems to have accessorized with a rather unusual stole. Should we say a stole, or should we call it a necklace? I mean, she's sort of looking down, perhaps a little bit shamefaced, and you know what? As well she might, because this is not the nicest accessory she could have chosen to wear, is it? It's like she's got a pair of mittens, only she's got it a bit wrong, and is wearing them on a string around her neck. It's an unusual depiction of Martha, because as I'll mention in a minute, this isn't, in fact, how she was martyred at all. But this chopping off of the hands, and if you miss that the hands have been chopped off, you've got two very livid red stumps, again, trickling blood that kind of almost looks like, it sort of looks like flowers or petals or leaves with berries on the end, you know what I mean? So these livid red stumps, you can't really miss them, especially the red, which is so, it really shouts out at you. It's a colour that really comes forward against the white and the yellow of the robes, which are more discreet colours. So you can't really miss the red, and then you can't miss these hands, which are also, by the way, massive, aren't they? Massive hands around her neck. That she's wearing in a very strange way, but I was saying that she wasn't actually martyred in this way, but the chopping off of hands and the chopping out of tongues as well was something that I'm afraid to say was I was going to say common. I don't know, it might not be common, but it wasn't unheard of, because obviously hands and tongue, they're ways of communication. We communicate through our hands, writing and so on, mouths, tongue, talking, and so by ridding martyrs of their tongues and their hands, the pagans were also stopping them communicating, essentially. So this is Martha. The thing is that these guys, I don't know what Sir Shinani was thinking. I don't know whether this is fresco number 19, and I don't know whether all the gore of the previous frescoes had just kind of got to him, because in fact the depictions of this family's martyrdom don't bear any relation at all to any of the stories about these people. But we know that this is Marius, Martha and their sons, because I mentioned in previous talks that you can see there's A's above them. You can see there's letterings, and they are referenced below, and very handy little plates with references. So we know that this is who they're supposed to be. But in all of the stories that are told about this family, they are indeed Christians. They're a Christian family. They travel to Rome, and on their way to Rome, they bury martyred Christians, and for their troubles, they get hauled up to the magistrate and hauled in front of the magistrate. And the magistrate says to them, "I hear you've been very naughty and you've been burying martyrs, Christians." And they say, "Yes, we have." And the magistrate says, "Well, I'm going to give you a chance here because you seem like a very nice family. And if you renounce your Christian faith and stop burying Christians, we'll let you go." And they very politely, because they do seem like those sorts of people, said, "Well, actually, no, thank you very much. We won't renounce our faith and we will keep burying Christians." At which point, yeah, the pagans had it in for them. The magistrate said, "Right, get out." But they left the court, and the sons and Marius were martyred by being beheaded. And I don't think history actually records how Martha was martyred, but she was martyred, I don't know, about 13 miles away from her sons and her husband. So I don't know whether she just managed to run in those robes, whereas they couldn't in those loincloths, whatever. Anyway, but she too was martyred, but no mention of huge hooks or hands round necks or any of that stuff. Okay, so obviously it had got to him. So this is the foreground. As ever, these frescoes are the frescoes that keep on giving. So in the centre at the back there, you can see this sort of grey, browny area. Well, this largely consists of a pile of bodies. Lovely. We can go a little bit closer. Where are we? So there, so you can't see very much. You can actually see a little bit more there is, I'm just going to show you this. So yeah, this is an engraving in the British Museum of the fresco, so you can see a little bit more clearly sort of these bodies in the background there, as is customary for these frescoes. And then over on the to the back, on the right hand side, just above Martha, can you see there's a figure kneeling and praying, and there's another figure behind him swinging his arm back. So this is St. Valentine, we're told, who is about to get beheaded in the background there, with beautiful classical building behind. And then we've got over on the other side, oh, there we go. That's so you can see that more easily. So this is St. Valentine, someone else like praying for him, but no, I'm afraid he is about to get his head chopped off. On the other side, you've got a couple of people who are in a hot tub, only they're not, of course, in a hot tub. Where are they? Can we see them here? So you can see them in this main building. So you can see the sort of circular thing with flames underneath. And actually that once again is a little bit better in the engraving. So where's that gone? There we go. So yes, a couple of people in the hot tub. I mustn't call it a hot tub because it can't have been very nice to have been put in a cauldron of boiling water, can it? So there are two people here, and one of them is Saint Justina. Now this is a whole other story. I told you you're getting many stories in one these days. So Justina was a beautiful young Christian girl who unfortunately took the fancy of a pagan nobleman, but she didn't want anything to do with him. She said, again, no thank you, very polite. But he wasn't having that. So he did obviously what anyone would do in that situation, and he hired a magician to make her fall in love with him. She was very pretty, and the magician also fell in love with her. So the magician was called Cyprian or Cyprian. So Cyprian thinks, okay, yes, I'm definitely not going to cast a spell so that she fancies this nobleman. No. I am going to use all my devilish powers to make her fall for me. And so he conjures the devil, and he makes Justina see all these visions and sort of all dark and demonic and lustful and lascivious, and he's sort of trying to get her to I don't know, release her sexuality or something, or devilment, but she wouldn't. She was like, no, I'm really, I'm seeing all these visions. Oh, they're very nice, but no, I'm still going with God. Thank you very much. At which point Cyprian thinks, my goodness, this God guy must be really powerful. He's more powerful than the devil. Because I've sent the devil to, help me. I've got the devil on my side, but God is even more powerful. And with this realization, he converts to Christianity. And so actually it is Justina and Cyprian who are both in this cauldron of boiling water together. But we know, if you remember from St. Cecilia, that boiling water doesn't really harm martyrs, does it? So note to pagan persecutors, don't bother putting Christian would-be martyrs in a cauldron of boiling water because it doesn't touch them at all. Cecilia was fine, they were fine, but obviously they got their heads chopped off anyway. What happened to the pagan nobleman? Nobody knows. He slides out of the story when Cyprian gets his claws into, his devil's claws, his devil's horns into Justina, only he doesn't because she doesn't want anything to do with it. So there we go. I mean, it's quite, yes, there's quite a lot, isn't there, in these images. So St. Marius in the centre, his wife Martha on the right hand side with her rather strange necklace that kind of really had nothing to do with their martyrdom at all, but was something that happened to Christian martyrs. They did get their hands chopped off. It is a particularly nasty touch, though, that they've been hung around her neck, I have to say. And the poor sons who are being hooked to death by the prototype Freddy Krueger, and then the inevitable bunch of bodies at the back. What's not to love? Santo Stefano Rotondo. All of these frescoes date from around about 1582 and were created by Niccolo Sergiani and Matteo da Siena. I'm going to turn comments back on and the image off, and I hope you enjoyed that. There we go. Yeah, lots and lots of horrible stories all in one painting. You're very welcome, Adrian. Good morning. Good morning. So there we go. I will. I'll find some more for you to choose from next week. Plenty more. And for now, have a really lovely weekend, and have a really lovely end to the week. I'll let you know how my very wet trip to Kew Gardens goes this evening. And yeah, speak to you soon. Or if I don't, I'll see you soon. Or sending love. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm waffling. Bye.